Let me help you, Dennis. Actually, the money for Grammys, we already paid. We are not about to pay.
Yes, it is now in public knowledge that Kenya is hoping to host the Grammy Awards. Grammy Awards are one, if not the biggest award ceremony in the globe. In fact, there are very few African countries that have ever hosted the Grammy. It shows how the Grammys are so big in the country. As very many people think that the Grammys are going to be held because of the music of the film industry, I've come to know that RUTO is trying to save his image across the globe. Few months back, the Gen Z came on the street to protest and they tainted the image of Kenya. And the Grammy Awards are now being used to save face of RUTO across the borders. It's not the first time that leaders, dictators are using such events from Olympics, World Cup, music events to clean their image. And I think RUTO is using the same technique of the Grammys to clean his image outside the country. So the purpose of this video, I've come to show you how Hitler used the same strategy to host the Olympics in 1936 so that he can clean his image. We all know that he had killed very many Nazis. He was a dictator, so he used the same style RUTO is using right now to save his image. But before I show you how RUTO is using the Hitler strategy, I want to tell you that if you're new to this channel, please subscribe. And if geopolitics and economics is what you want, this will be definitely the right channel for you to subscribe to.
In fact, ahead of Easy there is a gentleman from Grammy Awards, and there is also something there you are doing around the Grammy Awards for Africa. And you have actually instructed the State Department to pay so that then the Grammy Awards can be hosted in Kenya. There are a few things to unlock, and this gentleman has an appointment with you this week to unlock that part.
Let me help you, Dennis. Actually, the money for Grammys, we already paid. We are not about to pay. We already paid 500 million shillings towards that, and I'm sure the gentleman from Grammys can confirm that that is the direction we are going.
So we all know that few weeks back, the Gen Zs came on the streets to protest. It is one of the biggest protests in Kenya after the 2007 protest. But for me, I keep on telling people that the Gen Z protest is one of the biggest protests in Kenya because it was tribeless. They were having a common agenda of asking the finance bill to drop until it was dropped, to an extent that even reached a point of asking RUTO to go. You know, if a country has such protests, it taints its image. It can affect tourism, it can affect economics, it can affect investment. So any wise leader would want to save face, and they use a tool of propaganda known as the Hitler strategy. Okay? To show you that the Gen Z protest tainted Kenyans' image, every big media outlet across the world, from the BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, talked about the protest for several weeks, and it dents the image. That's the truth. It dents the image. To show that it dents the image, if someone asks you about Somalia, you clearly just know it's war. If they tell you about maybe Central African Republic, they will tell you war because that's what you normally see on these medias. Okay? But if they tell you that Somalia is hosting Grammys, your perception changes. So this is what RUTO is aiming. To show that it's tainted the image, I want to play a tape when they were reporting about the Gen Z protest. Here's the tape.
Some people have taken advantage of these protests against the high cost of living to do looting. So we've seen some widespread looting in the shops around here. I want to show you some of them now.
An alarming scene in Kenya today as police fired on protesters trying to storm parliament after a bill was passed that raises taxes. At least 5 people are dead and more than 30 were injured.
Anti-government protests continue across Kenya for the 4th week running. The youth-led protests are organized largely on social media. They were initially sparked by a controversial tax bill. President William Ruto has since withdrawn the bill and fired nearly his entire cabinet. But the protesters are demanding more, including an end to corruption and for Ruto to step down.
That is the Gen Z protest. So William Ruto is using this strategy to clean the image of Kenya so that he can buttress his political will across the country. We all know very many African countries, they have some effects from within the outside world. They also the Asian axis and the American axis. They influence politics in Kenya depending on what's going on. So William Ruto is saving face to see that the Grammys brought here to save face. To show you that Hitler used this strategy in 1940s, in the early 1900, Hitler killed very many Nazis. And when a chance arose of the Olympics, he used this strategy to market himself, not as a dictator, to show that Germany was peaceful, to show that Germany was inclusive, even black men. In fact, Hitler used these statements when opening up the Olympics.
The city of Berlin was awarded the auspicious task of hosting the 1936 Summer Olympic Games. It would be the first time a host nation would project its political ideology and power onto the world.
The German athletes were soldiers on the propaganda battalion.
Berlin is cleaned up. Anti-Jewish signs were removed. Everything was done to create the impression that this was a hospitable climate.
No one could have predicted was that these games would be used as a tool for some of the slickest propaganda by one of the most tyrannical regimes the world has ever seen.
So you clearly see that Hitler used the same strategy. So William Ruto is exploiting the Grammys, paying 500 million shillings, Kenyan shillings, to host the Grammys. Because just imagine if a country had such a protest and you see Kim Kardashian in a country. Just imagine if a country having a Gen Z protest and you see maybe Kanye West or Sean Paul, all those luxurious people, okay, influencers in the country. Okay, because we all know the Kenyan music industry is not the biggest. In fact, Tanzania has overtook East African music industry and film industry. But hosting the Grammy will try to serve as a tool of propaganda in the outside world to attract investors. Because after the Gen Z protest, investors must get reassurance that they must invest in the country, that there is peace. And that's what William Ruto is aiming at. Okay, here in Kenya, he visited Uhuru Kenyatta the other day. He wants to mend relations. In fact, Ruto was so comfortable with Rigathi Gachagua that he never needed Uhuru Kenyatta. But after the mountain slipping away, he's finding a way to bring it back. That's why he met Uhuru Kenyatta. And even the Grammy Awards are not aimed at maybe music industry. They're aimed at manufacturing the image of William Ruto. Do you remember the MTV Awards in Kenya? They are brought after people killed themselves in 2007 to clean the image. So such social things are used to clean images of Kenya as a tool of propaganda. The reason as to why Russia hosted the World Cup 2018 was because it had annexed Crimea. So it wanted to save its face in the outside because the World Cup brings together very many countries, even those who were opposing Russia to take over the Crimea. So the Grammy Awards have that in mind. William Ruto has that in mind to save his face to the outside world so that Kenya can gain repute which it had lost to the outside world. Of course, that's my opinion. Make comments by commenting about this. Thank you very much for listening in. If this is your first time on this YouTube channel, I employ you to subscribe, like and comment so that I can be motivated to do more of such videos. I'll see you on another one. Peace.